This is the third and final part of the hackers story. It fills in the gap, basically, how the world of Sparks went from being how it was to how it was after, when the narrator traveled to the nuclear future at the Laughing Tree. It's dark. It's as dark as it gets, and I need to give like a warning for that. There's another warning in character in the episode when the episode starts, but I just feel the need to let you know again. Yeah, it's about nuclear war. So it's and nuclear war is not pretty, as if I need to say that. Spark Stories itself has been dark so far, and I feel like a change is coming. So this episode kind of is an ending of the end of the world, but it's also like a little ending of this section of Spark Stories. There's going to be a thematic change coming up in future episodes. As I say at the start of all of these, if you want to listen to Spark Stories or future episodes or whatever comes next, because there's something else coming next outside of Spark Stories. Maybe not coming so quickly, but it's on its way. If you want early access to all of that stuff, if you want to listen to the Death Radio, which is like it's another podcast, which is like my personal diary, and support, keep it all ad free. There's no ads in Sparks all the way through it. I don't earn anything from it, but I set up a Patreon, which is patreon.com/Sparks podcasts. If you would like to support me and the world of Sparks that way. If Patreon's not your thing, all right, but if you feel like you would still like to support the podcast somehow, subscribing, following it, leaving a nice rating or review helps. It helps a lot. Sharing it, recommending it to people also helps. I always see the biggest spike in listens. Whenever I see a spike in listens, I know that like somebody's recommended it. So if you wanna support me and the world of Sparks, as I said, you could do those things. You could also follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to be more active on social media, trying to build a bit more of a footprint as I work towards the future of Sparks outside of the podcast. I will tell more about that on my Instagram, on the Patreon. But yeah, Instagram, follow me there at David_McCool. And you can always get in touch there as well. If you've got any questions or comments, I really love to hear from people who have listened to and have enjoyed Sparks. And I really like to answer the questions. Sometimes questions come along that kind of make me think of an aspect of the story that I hadn't thought of before. Yeah. So here's the episode. I want to say enjoy, but I don't know if that's the right thing to say to such a topic. But yeah, here we go. The next time you hear me, it won't be me. I need to give you a warning before this one starts, because this episode is as dark as it gets in Sparks and Sparks stories. So Jordan, down in the bunker there, triggered the virus, which got into the North Korean military systems and spoofed a nuclear attack. It showed incoming missiles, multiple incoming nuclear warheads from the US and the UK. They changed their strategy at the last minute and decided not to do a US-Russia attack, but US and UK. It fooled infrared satellites. They had ground-based tracking systems, and it also got into their command and control message traffic. It also got into early warning satellites and other ground radars. So, like, the result of it was that the military chiefs of North Korea had multiple independent sensors reporting the same thing, that they were under attack and nuclear war was coming. North Korea was going to be wiped out. It was within 2 minutes that military chiefs passed on the information to the supreme leader. He immediately issued a retaliatory order while heading off to his own bunker. It's only him who can order such a strike, and he didn't waste any time. As soon as it was confirmed, and it only takes one alert. His policy, the supreme leader of North Korea, his policy is it only takes one alert from one system for him to order a retaliatory strike. He had multiple reports from multiple systems. And it wasn't 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes had passed since the virus had infiltrated the systems that North Korean missiles lifted off. Again, around 100 warheads aimed at the UK and the US. In the United Kingdom, the targets were London, obviously, Liverpool, Sheffield, and multiple military bases. The main one being Catterick Garrison in North Yorkshire. If you don't know what Catterick is, it's the largest British Army base in the world, and it's a major logistics hub. Huge amount of the British military personnel are there, which is obviously why it was a strategic military target for North Korea. In the US, they targeted the White House, New York City, Los Angeles, and there are in the desert nuclear silos of the targets, political centers, anywhere where there was a large population, weapons facilities. What they wanted to do was break the command, destroy military capabilities, and produce as many casualties as possible. And in the US and the UK, their early warning satellites and radars showed them that they were under attack. Same thing happened. Military leaders ran around trying to confirm that the launch was real, and it was. Again, within minutes, the US president and the British Prime Minister had been informed that they were under attack. They confirmed it with each other. They got onto a call quickly and confirmed that they had identical data. In the US, the president was taken to the military command center in Washington, and the same in London for the prime minister. Both parties were briefed by tough military officials. Now, the time for launch of intercontinental missiles from launch to impact from Korea, on both sides, the estimate's like 20 to 30 minutes. So it means that they could only have 20 minutes to react before they're destroyed. So the president and the prime minister, they had like literally minutes to decide what they were going to do. Do they launch a retaliatory strike or do they wait? And nobody wanted to risk waiting. These intercontinental missiles, when they're on the way, the decision time for politicians and military leaders, they're compressed into hair thin windows. And most countries around the world, the military doctrines allow action on warning, because waiting just risks too much. Waiting risks losing the ability to retaliate at all, never mind defend yourself. Because in this situation, defense from such things is impossible. Within 15 minutes after the North Korean launch, both the UK and the US had executed their own launches from both countries. There were hundreds of warheads, each sent from air, from land, and sea. There are nuclear submarines at any one time all around the world, ready to launch. Their locations are constantly changing and are always top secret. The submarines and the nuclear bombers, they're both forces from the UK and the US standpoint. They're designed to be survivable and to be able to guarantee a response if anybody attacks. And at this point, they were responding. In Russia, at this time, The leaders misread the launches as part of a wider NATO strike, and they launched their own weapons towards the UK and the US, again targeting other major cities and power stations. In all countries now involved, command centers were destroyed, communications collapsed, and strike orders switched over to emergency protocol and failsafe, which is automated, basically automated responses to keep strikes going. Emergency systems, which are like hardened radio networks and airborne command posts, they managed to prolong the exchange, but there was just no way to stop it. This is it. Not an hour had passed, and now China, India, and Pakistan were all on high alert. Pakistan and India both launched to avoid being caught on the back foot. When China saw this, they launched too. There was confusion and high stress, as you could imagine, like all around at every level. People were already dead and in the process of dying. The exchange widened and it spread all across the globe. By the end of that first day, most, if not all, major cities on the earth, most, I'm saying it again, by the end of the first day, most, if not all, major cities on planet Earth had been destroyed. In the bunker in upstate New York, Jordan was watching the chaos unfold on the screens in front of him while Ashley, she was still strapped to the chair. She just screamed and struggled her way through the nightmare. Jordan, being the dark fuck that he was, had chosen Lemon on the Beach to be the theme tune to the end of the world, and he had it playing on repeat. That pop song played to images of mushroom clouds and cities burning in rubble, and to that sound of her own terrible pop song, Ashley continued to scream. And in the cities around the world, the population, the people, well, some people had been disintegrated, and the only sign that they'd ever existed were the shadows, which had been permanently burned into concrete walls by where they stood when the blast happened. The people who weren't vaporized were incinerated by the heat, and those were the lucky ones. Some people with radiation burns would die slowly over the coming days while their insides rearranged themselves and turned to mush. Those who survived the initial blast, still received heavy exposure to radiation and developed acute radiation poisoning, which means, if you don't know about this, and I'm going to assume that you don't, which means your bone marrow melts basically, and you start to bleed uncontrollably. Your immune system collapses. You become susceptible for infections, but that's the least of your worries. Your organs fail, and then you die. And the others who were in, let's say, safe zones, they were going to die anyway, slowly, over a period of weeks from fallout. Even in areas around the world that were untouched by the nuclear blasts, they'd be affected in the very near future too, because fallout was being spread already on that first day. Fallout was already being spread by winds, and over the next days and weeks, it'd cover vast regions of the globe. Global infrastructure had completely collapsed already. First day, there was no more military. There were no emergency services. These fires that burned were not going to be getting put out by any professionals because all the professionals were gone. And there was no doctors or nurses to tend to the fatally sick. Hospitals were either destroyed, burning rubble like the cities, or they had no power, they had no fuel, they had no electricity, they had no staff. Sanitation, the sanitation systems fell apart. Clean water supplies disappeared. So as much death came from the loss of all of that as it did from the blast. Now, within weeks after that day, people who'd survived that hell without radiation sickness had started to die off from thirst and hunger because food supply chains had collapsed. Agriculture, which is dependent on fuel, fertilizer, machines, people, stopped. Food stocks globally, diminished, and there was nothing and nobody to replace it. The upper atmosphere now was a thick sheet of smoke and dust, irradiated dust that would not go away for years to come. There was no sunlight. Sunlight couldn't break through it, and the crops that had still been growing, they began to fail. No sun. The soot and the smoke in the stratosphere took the sunlight away for years, as I said, and there would be nothing to grow. And it gave that strange light. When I went to the laughing tree, when I was in that nuclear future, I still don't know how long after all of this, after the initial blasts that was, but the light was so strange. It wasn't day and it wasn't night. And with the food, with everything that happened, it was barely half a year that passed after the day of the virus, after the day that nuclear war started. Not 6 months passed, and the vast majority of humanity was dead. You think even on islands like in the South Pacific, which would be far away from military action, their populations died. Getting poisoned air, lack of food, no sun, no crops, no drinking water. All of the fallout being spread now to them as well on winds. Basically, you could say in all of that, it took less than 20 minutes for the complete destruction of humanity to be locked in, with all of the decision windows measured in minutes, mixed with survivable second strike forces and the automated systems that had continued strikes. It meant that once that initial launch from North Korea had been triggered, or once the UK and the US had decided to retaliate, it just could never be reversed again. But you could say as well that it was already locked in the moment Jordan initiated the spoofing process. At Tom's farm in the bunker underneath the slaughterhouse, Daniel and his cult members were enjoying some special prayer time as the bombs fell, indulging in pleasures of the flesh while the world burned. They were all safe, but they were going to have to stay down there for the foreseeable future. But they were well prepared. They've been preparing it for a long time. They were ready for it. Going back a bit, over in upstate New York, in Jordan's bunker with Ashley, it was around about an hour after the hacking event, and both of them were dead. Jordan was on the floor in front of the door. His fingernails had been torn off, and Ashley was slumped in the chair. You see, what had happened was, um, after the event had been launched, Jordan contacted Daniel over in at Tom's farm to let him know that everything was underway. And Daniel waited a while to make sure it had worked as planned. And then Daniel initiated the final plan of the day, which was for him to remotely lock the doors on Jordan's bunker so there'd be no way out, and then to trigger the release of poisonous gas into the bunker. Jordan and Ashley suffocated to death. Ashley while she was strapped to the chair, and Jordan while he was at the door, choking and trying to claw his way through the metal. Now, the plan with nuclear war was complete. Jordan had absolutely was of no use to Daniel. You know, Daniel wanting to rebuild the world and build a paradise. He certainly didn't want somebody in that world who was willing to trigger nuclear war, somebody as broken and dark as Jordan. So he got rid of him. And you think, well, why, if he was going to just do that, why did he go to the trouble of building a bunker for him and spending all that money on kitting it out if he was just going to murder him as soon as nuclear war had been triggered? The thing is, for Daniel, the way he saw it was that was just a small price to pay if it meant convincing Jordan, aka Batlan 151, to trigger the end of the world. Jordan was, much like I had been, just another useful idiot. Like Laura, like me, like my mother. They did, or we all played our part in Daniel's fucked up plan. When we'd done our job, it was time to get rid. So, as the YouTuber and the pop star lay dead in the bunker, and as the world burned and fallout spread, and as people's bodies burned and melted from the inside out, in the bunker underneath Tom's farm, Daniel played his favorite music and enjoyed his time with the women. And this is when he believed that he had finally, truly become a god.